So today I'm here with Mr Garth Porter, one of the country's most respected referees, amazing martial artist in his own right. Okay, welcome to Kickboxing Life Stories, Garth.
Thank you very much, Neil. Really appreciate this. Yeah.
So listen, before we go into your martial arts journey, I want to find out a little bit about young Garth. What it was like, your upbringing, your family life before martial arts.
Yeah, I was born in Queen Elizabeth's Hospital in 1963.
That's a long time ago, Garth.
Yeah, years, man, years. And I lived in Saltley most of my life. Things weren't brilliant, but my parents taught me about patience because I couldn't get what I wanted when I wanted. I had to wait. Both my parents were working 2 jobs, so you know, them days we kept ourselves occupied. We can go here, there and everywhere. We didn't have no phones checking in or nothing like that. We was out there playing, you know, tracking and football and pop in and have a drink, and you know, so it was quite free. There weren't like protection like how it is now with all these predators around and things like that.
You have a big family?
It's just me and my 2 sisters. I've got a half sister as well. So I was like the middle one.
Oh, okay.
I got a younger sister and 2 older sisters, like, you know, and that was great, you know. I kind of looked after my sisters, you know. A time in my life where I was looking after both parents because both of them were ill. I lost my parents quite early in life.
Right.
You know, where, you know, I kind of like was looking after them. So it stopped me from doing many things, you know, but my conscience is clear because I've done everything I could for my parents because they brought me into the world. So, you know, it was just my payback to do everything I could for them, you know. Yeah, so that's...
And school life? What school life was?
School life was alright, you know.
Were you the bully or the bullied?
You know what? I was one of the cocks of the school, you know.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, guys.
There was another guy called Lionel Buchanan.
Right.
Everybody wanted me to fight him, but when I used to see the way he used to scale these walls, thank God I didn't have to fight him because he probably would have kicked my ass. And then there was a guy called Robert Cabri.
Right.
Where one time I was in a playground and I saw him take on 2 guys who was biting his fist and punching them at the same time, like, you know, he's one of these mad ones. But I become friends with them.
Right.
So all the bullies, I become friends with them, you know.
And at school, could you handle yourself?
I've never really... Only one time I ever got in trouble at school, and that's because they wanted me to fight somebody and I didn't want to fight them. So I had about 5 guys, 5 kids surround me. I just braced my back against the wall and I was just throwing swings until the teacher come out, like, you know. But yeah, I was alright at school, you know. My dad, he was very strong.
Right.
You know, he was a strong male role model from Jamaica, you know, no beating around the bush. You know, he wanted me to be strong. And he always said he wished he could have had another son to kick my ass.
Right,
you know?
keep you in line.
Keep me in line, you know. But, you know, I was just like my mum, placid, easygoing, just open. I didn't want no trouble. But if trouble came, I could deal with it.
So you felt like you had both sides. You had the sternness of your dad when you needed it.
I had a switch.
Right.
I could be moody for days. Somebody upset me, I'd be moody for days, not just like half an hour, days.
Apparently that's a trait of a lot of martial arts instructors.
Oh, is it?
Apparently.
Yeah, I was just moody for days, like, you know, until I just come back to earth and that, like, you know. But nah, I was placid, I was easy. Like now, I'm just easygoing, placid, love life, love people. I don't want people to hate me. I want to be approachable. Yeah. You know, I want people to respect me and trust me.
I think, to be fair, I've known you for a long time, Garth, and like you've always been like that. You've always been like the chilled out guy.
Oh man, that's me, man.
Like silent assassin.
Yeah, I don't put on no faces. It's me. It's the way I choose to be. Like, you know, it's where. But I have got that switch, just like anybody else. You know, there's only so much you can take.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you have to voice yourself.
Well, some people take kindness for weakness, don't they?
And I think that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I've experienced that many times in my life, you know, where I've helped people and then egg in your face.
And then your dad's side comes out.
Yes, then I have to be stubborn and just, you know, have to crack a couple eggs, like, you know, and get the belt out.
Right.
You know.
So, what age did you show an interest in martial arts? How did that all come about?
Right. I can remember when I was 11.
Okay.
And I used to be drawing these little stick men fighting for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what. I can remember it drawing, you know, these stick men. And I remember probably around about 12, I found a karate book in the army barracks, because we used to have an army barracks at the back of our house.
Right.
And I found this, and it was like the Holy Grail. What the hell's this? You know, and I started practicing.
You know, all your kung fu men are going to disown you now.
Well, it was that.
You're karate man.
I think that was the most dominant thing that was around
Right.
before Bruce Lee. Was karate, like, you know.
So this is before you'd even heard of Bruce?
Yeah, before.
Wow.
Well, that's what happened. Like, I found this book and I started practicing these blocks and these kicks. Didn't know what the hell I was doing, but people used to come up to me, Garth, would you teach me that? And I was doing the box splits. I used to walk around kicking the, you know, the old bus. Kicking bus shelters, kicking trees, lampposts. Used to do triple kicks on the lampposts. You know, I was doing all this crazy stuff, and people, God, show us how to do that, like, you know. But
and this was before you were formally trained?
Before I was trained.
This is all from a book?
This is all from a book.
Wow.
And then I started doing judo at 13 at school.
Right.
I used to train with a guy called Curtis Armstrong, who went on to fight for England, like, you know. And I joined the Glebe Farm Community Centre and Neutrals Green Community Centre. I was doing judo, but it was too rough, man. I hated to be held down, so I think I was a bit uncut.
Is that not like a contract, like you're walking around kicking bush shelters and lampposts with triple kicks, and then you're restricted to going throwing each other around?
Because that's all, I started from school.
Right.
And that's what I seemed to follow.
Okay.
Until I met a guy called Coral, and I think he trained under Eddie Daniels and he'd done karate.
Okay.
So I went there for a couple of months, but I wanted to fight, but all it was just katas and technical stuff, and and I wanted to fight. So
what year was that ish?
When I was say 13, it was 1976.
Wow.
1976.
You've been around a long time, Garth, man.
1976. You know, around about that time. So
so that led you to Eddie's gym?
I went to train with Coral.
Yeah.
And then after I left Coral, I found a guy called Les Mayo, who he'd done kickboxing, Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, and he was under like Professor Cancho Dorset.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. I'd done some tournaments with him.
And whereabouts was that?
That was in Chelmsley Wood. I was training back in the day, like, you know. And then from there, I left him. And I'd done Wing Chun Kung Fu. I'd done Wing Chun with a guy called Abbott in Sutton Coldfield. I used to travel by bus by myself to Sutton Coldfield, and I'd done Wing Chun.
Was none of your friends were on this journey with you?
No,
You're on your own?
just myself. Something just drew me to it. I suppose with my upbringing, I weren't a happy child. I didn't have everything I wanted. I had to use my own pocket money to go and do my own martial arts. The first suit I had, it was a second-hand suit my mum got me.
Right.
You know, so my parents had never come to watch me compete. They never come to watch me in a class.
But that I'm sure made you appreciate it a little bit more, because it was your own money.
It was my own money. It was my own time. It was something that made me be able to channel that aggression that was within me, that nobody never really saw apart from the moods.
I think that's what's missing in a lot of kids today. You know, when the parents bring their kids to the dojo, and it's like kind of forcing them through the door, and it's like they want to be at home on their PlayStations or whatever. But I think the people that truly achieve great things within the sport are the ones that have got that
the passion for it, and that desire to do it, and
self-motivation as well.
Yeah. So I left Abbott now. Well, I wanted to do Wing Chun. I was reaching about, what old was I? About 22. I kind of was doing the Wing Chun. And
did you take any grades in any of these arts that you went into?
I started to do grade, not in the karate. I'd done grades in the judo. I went up to green belt in judo, and then, like I said, I just moved on. I wanted to kick.
Yeah.
So I went over to karate, but it weren't my thing because I wanted to fight more, but it was more technical and katas and things like that. And then I went into the Wing Chun. I didn't stay there because Abbott wanted his students to beat me up.
Right.
Because it was funny really, because I got there early and I was stretching because I've been doing kickboxing, so I was stretching. So these two students that done a demonstration, because before you could join you had to do like a 6-week induction.
Yeah.
You had to go, you had to watch, and then you sign up, and then if they like you after 6 weeks you carry on. But I was stretching in the class, so one of them come up to me and said, "Can you kick?" I went, yeah, I can kick. And show some kicks. As I was kicking, Abbott walked in. Oh God. So then he asked me to stop over to spar with them.
Right.
After class. Right. So
did you feel like a little bit of an outsider at this point?
I felt like there was going to beat me up.
Right.
this is like something I shouldn't have been doing, and he didn't like it because they don't do high kicks in Wing Chun.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so then I sparred with the one, and I kicked him in the head, and he didn't like it.
Right.
Because he's never been kicked in the head before. And sparred with the other one, kicked him in the head, didn't like it. You know, and then it was like, what they was doing in a demonstration, they couldn't do it in a proper spar. So I got a bit disorientated, like thinking, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
And what he just done there is like...
It's not to say it doesn't work, but I found that the traditional arts were so regimented in what they wouldn't look outside of the box at all. Whereas like the modern martial arts would take a little bit from here and a little bit from there. But if it wasn't Wing Chun, you can't use it.
Wing Chun's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, it just depends on who's doing it.
Right.
Because I was working the doors for 7 years, and the reason why I went to do Wing Chun, because after doing like a bit of kickboxing, points fighting, things like that, I wanted some real
Authentic.
confrontation
Right.
to see
how
I can deal with it. So the Wing Chun for me then was like direct, and it, you know, I was introduced into Bruce Lee then, like, you know, Bruce Lee done Wing Chun, you know, so that would be, you know, another thing that I would like to do, and it done me well.
So listen, this is something I've got to touch on, because there's a lot of people that weren't around in that Bruce Lee kind of era. Like, I come around after that. I was more a Van Damme man. I hate to admit it, but I had to go back and find Bruce.
Okay.
How much was Bruce an influence when you found him?
I bought every book, I bought every video, I bought everything. I even had some of his bonsai gloves. He was like, you know, he was like a god.
Yeah.
You know, because some of the things he was doing, it was like, wow. And even when you look back, when he was doing Game of Death, he was doing MMA before even anybody was thinking about it.
Of course.
You know, so that's how far he was ahead of his time. You know, I read his philosophy. I tried to put it into my life, you know, and it done me well. It kept me on a straight and narrow. You know, it was like somebody you looked up to.
And could you relate to his teachings in regards to, you know, like the Jeet Kune Do, where it was like an amalgamation of so many different martial arts?
Yeah.
You were kind of...
I was like that.
You were already running that, weren't you?
I trained with Alfie for 6 years.
Right.
You know, I took my first dan, second dan, third dan with Alfie.
Was this straight off your Wing Chun?
No. Okay.
Right, okay, so let's go back. Let's go back. So Wing Chun,
and then I found I was training in Dudley with the Dudley Lau lot.
Okay.
With that Ken Holt, and used to walk around drinking beer, like, you know, and that's where I met like Del Sampson, I met Blacker there, and I used to go and spar with them on a Sunday. But then I started training with Michael Hudson. I was training with Michael Hudson at the Small Community Centre, the Barley Mao.
How did you find out about Michael?
I was just travelling, and I knew his brother, Trevor Hudson. I went to school with his brother.
Okay.
And then I was just travelling, and I can't even think how I come across him. I think I just went on into the club in Small Leaf.
Right.
And I liked it, and I
was
started.
Munn Street?
Yeah. I went in that club because, you know, me on my travels always just travelling to find somewhere to train, like, you know. And that's when I first met him. And when he said his name was Michael Hudson, and I went, well, I know a guy called Trevor Hudson. And he kind of went, well, yeah, he's kind of my half brother, like.
Wow.
But they didn't kind of meet each other.
What year was that though?
Oh my gosh.
Because this is when I first met you.
Yeah, that's when because I was down by the Bilsby school, and then I saw you come in there, but you was only little with loads of ginger hair. And it was a hard fight. Mikey used to give you trouble, man, but you used to be a battler then, because we didn't have many kids fighting like around. But my word, I kind of admired you then.
I think the martial arts back then is like, you know, oh, so you want to be a fighter? Have some of this. You know, it was like induction by fire, wasn't it?
Well, Mikey, we weren't no foot pads or nothing. You're sparring your trainers. So half the time I used to go on with tread marks in my face, bust slip every time. I mean, the first person to kick me in the head was a guy called Bugsy. Right. I've never been kicked in the head before, and I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't even stop him. You were the one that done the kicking. That's the first time. That's the first time somebody ever done it to me. And then I met like Colin Glassford with the spinning kicks, and I'm thinking, Kung Fu Colin? I thought, how the hell are you doing this? Like, you know, it's impossible. So they were established members of the club before, they was already established, before you joined? Yeah, so when I joined, it was like my good friend Dave Reese, Colin Treasures was there, Richard Hamilton, Tom, you know.
Alan Osborne.
He was training there.
Ozzy.
Yeah, Ozzy, yeah. So yeah, I kind of joined that clan, like, you know, alongside I was doing sparring elsewhere and that. You know, we've done a lot of tournaments with Micah, you know, and from Micah, I trained with a guy called Ian Worrell from TAGB. And Ian kind of took me up to my first Q, and then we went to join Alfie Lewis's FSK.
So how did that come about? Did you feel like you just needed more, or was the competition calling you?
I was fighting, competitions were calling me, and I was fighting, and I used to go to the MAIs, and I used to go to the FSKs, and I used to fight, and I used to see them there. And then I got drawn. We got drawn into joining that organisation, FSK. And then from there, I took my first dan, my second dan, my third dan with Alfie.
Right.
You know, I've been on like seminars with Alfie. I've sparred with Alfie, and I couldn't hit him, and I was getting angry, and he semi-knocked me out, and I just grabbed him, and I wouldn't let him go, like, you know. But you know,
I mean, Alfie was a phenomenon, wasn't he?
Well, he was one of my role models. I looked up to him. Kevin Bruton, you know, with the Thai boxing, Ronnie Green, Benny the Jet. You know, Bill Simfoot Wallace.
So where were you finding out about all these guys?
The magazines, Combat. And I started gathering like footage, like video footage, you know, on them all, and just studying it. You know, just watching what they was doing. You know.
And again, from lots of different styles, so lots of different sources.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you know, it was martial arts. The knowledge, it's so wide, and I don't restrict myself to just one thing, because you can learn from all angles, different types of training. You watch and see what that person's doing. Oh, I can use that, can use this, you know.
Did you find like a lot of the styles that you were training in at the time restricted you doing that? Like, it's got to be our way and it's got to be this way, and although that works, we don't do that. Like, I remember going to Taekwondo, and I was always a kicker.
Yeah.
And I went into a Taekwondo club to enhance my kicks, to get my kicks better. But obviously, like, the counter to the kicks is the sweeps. So like, if I was coming up against someone that was like, you know, really handy with their legs, I tried to negate their kicking with sweep. Oh no, we don't sweep.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, I respect that. And then it's like you get past the kick and you get on the inside and you work that. No, we don't do that type of boxing here.
Yeah, I kind of like, you did come across that. But with my thing was patterns and katas.
Yeah, you weren't.
I wanted to fight.
Yeah.
And then when I went over to FSKA and the freestyle, where it was just freestyle, it was just about fighting, you get graded on your fighting ability. That seemed to suit me. Because some of the katas and patterns, you know, traditionally, yes, it's what it is. It's been passed down from generations to now. Sometimes it's like Chinese whispers. One man says something, by the time we reach down there, he's saying something completely different. So every instructor's completely different along the line.
Of course.
But fighting's fighting, throwing a punch is throwing a punch, blocking a punch, moving up from a punch. And that's why it's the FSK, they're all the freestyle karate.
That circuit was hard, man. I remember fighting on the FSK circuit, and it's like you might as well be in a street fight some of the times. It's, you know, a lot was let go, wasn't it? Even though it was points or continuous.
It was contact, you know, you got to be tough. It's, you know, even though it's points and that, you still got a scrap against somebody who's trying to take your head off and
you enjoyed that.
I loved it. You know, I mean, like, I used to go to the George Carnell.
Yeah.
When he used
that
to
Manchester, wasn't it?
Yeah. He used to do all the big Clash of the Titans and things like that. Like, you know, one time they dragged me in there.
Into the club?
Yeah, because Alfie was fighting Nasty Anderson.
Right.
And then there was a man down, so as I got in there, they kept, Garth, you're fighting. I'm like, what? Because in 1990, I suffered from a bad knee injury where I snapped my cruciate ligament.
How did you do that?
I was getting ready to fight for a fight in Crystal Palace, and I had these big guys come down. This big guy called Eddie, a big Rasta man, I used to look up to when I was younger, but one of them started doing training with me. So I was sparring with him, and I jumped up, kicked him in the head with a beautiful jumping back kick. But when I landed, my knee just went.
Whoa! How old were you then?
I was how old was I then? I was about 23.
No way.
About 23, and you know, the injury just carried, and.
So did you carry on competing after the injury?
Well, while my knee was injured, while my knee was healing, that's when I fought Pele Reed.
Oh, is this what happened at the clash?
Because as I went to the clash, she said, Garth, you're fighting, and I'm thinking, oh, do I have to fight? You're not going to fight, just come and just join.
Did you know Pele at the time?
I was watching him.
Right.
I watched him fight 2 fights before I fought him, and he hit this guy with his shot, and I saw the guy do a spinning back. Yeah.
Kung Fu flip.
Yeah, and then he had the guy on the floor, and I just saw him finish him with one shot, and I thought, okay, I hope I don't have to fight him.
Pele's serious, man. Pele's
man,
serious.
I had a battle with him, you know.
Yeah.
Because they tried to put Colin, because Colin was on form, like, you know, but Colin's like there, Pele's up here.
Yeah.
And I thought, nah, I can't make you go in there, mate. Just give me the stuff, I'll put the stuff on and win out.
Right. And was this points or was it continuous?
It was continuous.
It was continuous.
Continuous, man. So went out there, he looked at me, I looked at him. I saw this foot go up, I moved that way, caught me on the back of the head, and that's it, I was on the floor, I got up.
No way.
And I thought, shit, I know where I am now, because I just heard the battle scream then, I just went for it then. We had a really good scrap, but you know.
Wow, Pele Reed, another legend of the sport.
He is another legend, man. He was like something growing up from kickboxing to K1 to boxing, you know. He was a young man that was on a mission, you know, You know,
I think he was probably one of the most feared fighters on the circuit as well.
He was
and he was
nice and humble as well. So
he was the successor to Alfie, I think. Like, you know, Alfie was moving out and Pele was moving in.
Yeah.
So after your fight with Pele, was there any competing after that, or was it done?
Because like I said, my knee was healing. I shouldn't have fought that anyway. So say when I was 26, I decided to just jack in the fighting because I was.
How hard was that?
It was hard because that's what I love doing. But then I was working at Longbridge. I was working at Longbridge, started there in 1984.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working shifts. I had 2 young children. I was teaching as well.
So your teaching journey, had that started much before that point? Or was it a new club at the time?
That club there, I started at Hutton Hall Community Centre. That was my first club.
Was that on your own, or was
that
it
was on my own?
Okay.
That was on my own. I started there. I was 26 then.
Right.
I say 26, yeah. That was 1984. 1984.
Do you think if, when you picked up that injury, which is like a career-changing injury, and like a derailing injury, do you think if you never had your club at that time that you might have moved away from martial arts, not being able to compete anymore?
I think me having that injury, it pushed me more into teaching.
Right.
It pushed me more into teaching because I couldn't fight no more. I wanted to keep into the martial arts. And I had students there, and I couldn't let my students down. Because I always says to myself, somebody buys a license, I'm there for a year. I'm not going to pay for a license for a year. So to the last student who buys that license, if they don't renew their license, then I'm finished.
Right, okay.
So that was my philosophy. So I'll always be there for my students, like, you know. But then it's like I lost my parents as well, both my parents.
Was that around that time?
It was around that time.
Did they ever get to see you open a club? No,
they never got to see that. So it was like looking after my parents as well as doing everything else. When my parents left, I had more time on my hands. And it felt like I've always looked after people. I've looked after my parents, I've looked after my students. Almost like my name's Porter, to serve. You know, so I always serve people. You know, so it just gave me more time, and I'd have a lot of time on my hands because I went running up and down, doing this, doing that. So I went more into teaching.
Right. And what was your club? Was it billed as a kung fu club or a kickboxing club or a freestyle
club?
Right.
I was, like I said, I was with Alfie then. So it was a freestyle, Yin Yang freestyle it was called.
Okay. Was Colin Glassford at the time, was he part of your association?
Well, all of us, we've done our grades together with Alfie.
Right.
Because there was like Ian Worrell, Colin Glassford and David Reese.
Yeah.
There was us 4. We was on this journey and we created Yin Yang freestyle, and we was all together and doing our bits and pieces, and then we kind of separated, and then I just went into Yin Yang School of Martial Arts then.
Right.
Because then I started working in the community. I started doing community projects. I started working with a company called Street Games at FitCap, where we was working in antisocial behaviour areas, trying to get the kids off the streets.
Yeah.
And then I was working at Norton Hall Family Centre, where these kids, it was like, you know, having problems at school or problems at home, and they was on the edge of being either bullies or being bullied. So I was doing a lot of work with there, just trying to empower them, giving them a bit of a martial arts structure with discipline, but where they can gain things. Because some of these kids, academically, zero. They can't do nothing at school.
Was that more your motivation when you started teaching? Obviously, like you get some clubs and they're more competition based. Did you feel like because your competition days were behind you, that it was more the mentoring martial arts that you were looking at?
It was that as well, but then I did spot some of the kids who had that ability to be champions. And I can name one person who won me an award at work. He won me a gold award for the Diversity Council Award.
Go on.
And his name was Michael.
Right.
Michael Borland.
Right.
You know, because I met him when he was 11, and it was all tearaways, up the trees, throwing sticks at me. You know, going in this group, I was an adult in this group of little wolves, you know, and I took on Michael. You know, 11, he says, Garth, one day I want to be a champion. I said, all right, then, you white belt first, and then we'll work up to that. You know, and then, you know, I took him under my wing. I was going into schools. I was teaching in schools, Shore Hill School. Summer, you know, like summertime on the 6 weeks, I was going into schools teaching.
And how old was he at the time?
Michael was 11, going on 13. Right. So we'd done it for a couple of years. I took him under my wing. And then I had my gym then in town, McDonald Street.
Right.
And then I got all the kids who I was working with to come and help me paint it.
Wow.
From there...
That's a bit Mr Miyagi, that is.
Yeah, come in and paint my gym. I ain't going to paint nobody. I've got all these kids here. Give them paintbrushes. Yeah, I let them do it. They want to train, yeah. I let them paint it. It's their gym, not mine.
Right.
You know, and then from there, Michael done a college course in painting and decorating.
Wow.
So he always thanked me for that. And then now he lives in Scotland. He's got his own business.
Right.
He's got his own painting and decorating business. So he's actually made something out of all of them. He's the one that kind of shone.
And you planted that seed?
Yeah. And that's what I believe, you know, sometimes we can't help all of them.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you plant a positive seed and it germinates, something positive will grow.
Yeah.
And I find that with a lot of the kids, because for me now, it's the time where the kids I used to teach that I can't just about recognise when they walk through the door, bringing their children back to me.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's when you know that you're old, that you know, kids that you taught are bringing their grandkids to you. Right?
That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's nice though.
Yeah.
Because they remember you.
Yeah. And they remember the important lessons that you taught them, that they then want you to pass on to their children.
Kids. Yeah.
So talking about children, you had did all your kids at some point done martial arts? Was that important to you?
Definitely important, you know, because I wanted them to. My kids, they're not ghetto kids. When I say ghetto kids, they don't go out there fighting on the streets, and you know, I brought them up in a nice environment where they don't have to face none of that. But I wanted them to be able to protect themselves. So all my kids, I've trained them in martial arts. My eldest daughter Gemma, my middle daughter Jasmine, and my son Romain. You know, I wanted them all to be able to, the discipline as well, and the fitness, and the people around, because, you know, the people around me are all positive people, and I wanted them to be in that kind of like environment.
Community and...
Yeah.
And did you have any aspirations for them when they started?
Yeah, I wanted all of them to be fighters. I mean, my daughter...
Even your daughter?
My daughter fought. Jasmine fought. She fought. It was a charity bout. For the Birmingham Children's Hospital, because all my kids went to the Birmingham Children's Hospital. Yeah. So I do a lot of work with Sonny Hero when he's doing his white collar championships, because it's raised a lot of money for the Birmingham Children's Hospital. So Jasmine and Mamie, they fought on the same night while I was refereeing.
No way. So you're
one of the horriblest things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Because in the first round, I had to give my own daughter an 8 standing count.
No way.
And I couldn't say anything.
Wow.
But then the second round she come out, she stopped the girl.
Wow. But that must have been really hard. I mean, I can only speak. I mean, I've got 2 girls myself, and it's like, you know, I want them to do martial arts, but I don't want them to do martial arts. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, I don't want you to get hit. I want you to be really good at martial arts so you don't have to fight. But you were like, you're happy for them to compete.
And I did, and I loved it, and I love that thing, and I want them to kind of like take the flag. Where I left off, I want them to achieve things.
So this is the thing about parents and their kids, and it's like some parents like live their life through their kids. Some parents want them to go to the top no matter what, you know. And then there's other parents that just want them to do martial arts for like the life lessons that martial arts bring. You had real aspirations for
my son.
For Maney.
Yeah, I did. I saw something in him from a young age, you know, and he was a shy kid, very inhibited. He didn't have no confidence, you know.
Would you say that's more of his mum's side or your side, or?
I think I was like that as well.
Okay.
When I was younger, because I used to hide behind my dad, I remember that.
Right.
Anybody's talking to me, I used to hide behind my dad. So I suppose it was the same thing with me. I didn't have that confidence either. It's something that you kind of you push yourself and out. You kind of develop it later.
What age did Romain start?
I started teaching him when he was 2.
2 years old.
Started fighting when he was 6.
Wow.
You know, because we used to fight on the BLCCs back then.
Yeah.
You know, it's been going a long time.
Do you think he felt pressure?
Yeah, because he used to fall down. Sometimes I would have to take him to a show or take him to a tournament and ask them, could he fight first?
Right.
Because if he
Before
don't
the
fight,
nerves kick in.
Yeah, he had to fight first. I didn't want him watching anything. Just jump in there and fight. Because if he was watching a fight, he'll say, no, I ain't doing it.
Right.
And then he's very stubborn like that. You know, if he makes his mind up to do something.
And do you think that was because Dad is coach, or do you think that's just in his nature?
It was in his nature, but later down, yes, Dad and coach thing, it gets difficult.
Yeah, of course.
You know, but back then it was just in his nature. He loved doing it. He loved training, but the fighting part, it didn't click yet. The penny didn't drop yet.
At what point did it click?
I think when he fought his first, when he fought his first title fight, I think it was. That's when I saw something completely different. No, he wasn't before that. I used to take him and throw him in the ring with some harbour sharks, which he probably hates me for it, you know, because I wanted him to be strong and tough, you know. And then sometimes he took a little bit of a beating, but then he'll come back to training and he'll train harder.
Yeah.
You know, because I think sometimes the hard fights you learn more. It teaches you why you're training. You know.
Isn't it funny? Like some kids you'll get. Like I'm sure you asked yourself the question about Romain when he like was showing signs of like temperamental when he was younger. Maybe he hasn't got it. Do you know? And then obviously we know he has.
Yeah.
I think with someone like Romain, it's like he's bearing with it, waiting for it to click, waiting for him to turn the corner.
I think that's what it is. You see something and you just take your time and develop it. But I would never push him into it. He has to make his decision whether to do it or not. I'll never force him into doing it. I'll never force anybody into doing anything. But if they choose to do it, then I'm with them all the way. And, you know, he got better at it and got stronger at it. You know, it's like somebody who's scared of water. You know, you take them in the shallow end first and then you start wading them out into the deep end. And then, you know, and
did he ever resent his martial arts? Because he was in it, almost like it's a chore, you have to do it. Do you think it got to a point where he thought he was doing it for you rather than him at a very young age?
That happened probably later. You know, when sometimes, you know, he's winning, and then we come back to the gym and we're doing the same thing over and over again, and he'll question, why am I doing this for?
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, hold it a minute, you've been winning all them fights, what do you think you're doing it for? Listen, don't even ask me them questions.
Yeah,
and it become like that.
So the lines of coach and dad was blurred?
Yeah, because with me now, if there's one of my other students telling me that, I wouldn't be dealing with him, because it's my son. And if I go home and tell my missus I've sent him home, I'm having an argument with my missus as well, she's going to curse me.
Yeah.
So it did become like that, and that's when I found you.
Right. So you come as, obviously me and you have known each other for the longest time. And we've almost got sister clubs to each other. You know, we're competition, but we're not competition. And you approached me and you said, would you take Romain under your wing and develop him further in his full contact for those reasons?
It was that reason, but the other reason was because I was working. I was working shifts. Do you know what I mean?
Didn't have the time to.
I didn't have the time because he used to work for a block paving company, so he finishes 6 o'clock. If I finish, say I'm a late 10 o'clock, we was in the gym at 10:30 at night training for fights. He's tired.
Yeah, of course.
So it was hard. So sometimes when fight night comes, he's exhausted. He's exhausted through the training. So I just couldn't find that time to give him, to take him up to that next level.
And was that a hard thing to do, to hand over the reins to somebody?
It was a hard thing, but I'm thinking about him now. I'm not thinking about myself. Some people are like this, keep it to themselves. Where me, I think about that person. If I only can take that person so far, if I'm at college, then I have to send him to university after.
Right.
So he gains more knowledge, so he learns more experience. And that time there weren't many people around where I could get him to spar at that competition level.
Right.
So I had to find somewhere we can go and spar.
There was a couple of people, if I remember rightly, that were showing an interest in taking Romain on.
Yes.
But it wasn't a good fit for you.
Nah. Manny knows where he knows where he wants to go. Do you get what I mean? You know what? To be the best, you have to go with the best. Do you get what I mean? To be the best, you have to go with the best. Like they say, steel sharpens steel.
Yeah.
But you get some people who, I don't know what they're looking for. They're looking for some kind of glorification, just to add some face to their listing, to make their club look better. You know,
I think Romain was definitely a good fit for us at the time, because obviously we had Kaz around the same weight, and kind of like he'd bounce off Kaz in sparring and in training. And of course we had Tyrone Power, who's his current coach at the minute, so they struck up a great friendship.
Yeah, definitely.
It was, I mean, what Romain done in the full contact was pretty special.
He was special. I just wish he would have kept in there, but you can wish for, you know, he's left there, now he's got his own business. Well, he's started 2 businesses. He's got like his C&M home improvements, and he's got his Venetian plastering, luxury finishes. So alongside his training now, he's still trying to run his businesses, because he's got 2 sons. So he's a father, so he's kind of gone into where I was.
But you know what's great is the fact that he's still competing now. Shows that he's got that burning. Because a lot of people, when they get to that stage in their life where they've got other commitments, it's like, right, that's the young man's game.
He's still 26, he's still young.
And he's looking stronger and better than ever.
He's got manpower now. Before he was knocking him out as well, like, but he had boy power, but now he's got like proper power now.
Scary power.
He's got scary power. And Tyrone's doing a fantastic job with him, you know, at the Combat Academy. Like the mates. He travels down there 2-3 times a week, and he feels happy doing that, and I'm happy him doing that. And then if he needs me, he just says, "Dad, can I do some pads? Dad, can I?" I'm saying, "Yeah, I'm here."
And how far do you think he'll go in the K1?
I think he's just going to take it fight by fight. You know, I think his next fight is like a British title. His next one. You know, as long as he can do the training, he'll go far. But with his business and his training and his family life, that balance. You know, I know a lot of other fighters do it. You know, it's just him. You know, he'll go as far as he can go. Well, he's got people behind him, helping him.
He's obviously got boxes he still want to tick. You know, to still be doing it.
Well, he said the other day, he says, "Dad, get another cabinet."
Right.
That's what he said that Christmas Day.
Get another cabinet.
Sat in the living room looking at all his belts in my living room. Like, he looked and went, "Dad, get another cabinet." And I thought, okay.
Yeah, there's a storm coming.
That's what he said.
So looking back at, obviously he was a world champion in full contact. He's moved on to K1. He's won tournament world titles abroad.
I mean, he's had 3 boxing fights, won them all. He's had 2 K1 Betashins, won them all. You know, like I said, next thing is progression. He's got for a British title. And then it just depends on who they can fight to find him, like, you know.
So as Dad, how does it feel saying that, you know, looking back at his career so far? What kind of pride does that fill you with?
I feel proud of him, you know, because it's our passion, you know, and he shares the same passion as me, you know. But yeah, it's my son, and I love martial arts, he loves martial arts. I love to fight, he loves to fight. I can't fight no more, I'm watching him fight, I get the buzz.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know.
So another question, we had Dale Wood in for a Life Story interview, and he was talking about his brother Ricky used to compete, and how hard it was for him to work his corner as a sibling, and, you know, sometimes see him getting hurt. Obviously, when you're working your son's corner in like a BLCC or a light continuous fight, it's, you know, it's still nerve-wracking, but when he's going in with monsters, at world level
Yeah.
in full contact disciplines or
Yeah.
K1 disciplines. How hard is that?
When he's fighting, I'm fighting.
Yeah.
I feel he stresses. I get frustrated when I see him probably sitting on the ropes and he shouldn't be there. And yeah, I feel them things and that, you know. But he prepares himself well, so I feel confident.
Right.
If he didn't prepare himself well, any of the fighters that I put in the ring, he wouldn't be fighting. I wouldn't want him to fight. You know, so as long as he prepares himself well, does the right things, then I feel confident to stand in his corner knowing he's going to be alright. I've seen him knock people out. I've never seen nobody knock him out yet, so that's going to be like another learning curve if that does happen.
Well, God willing, that'll never happen.
I hope it never happens. But
So you said you had to administer a count to Jazz, and that was in an officiating capacity.
yeah,
How would it be if Romain was in a hard fight in the corner? Maybe he was cut, he was bruised, maybe he was dropped a couple of times. He comes back to the corner, the fight's starting to go from him. As dad, as coach, how do you think he'd respond to that, or is that a hypothetical question
how
that we don't?
would he respond?
No, how would you respond
Well,
to
I've
that?
been there with him in his early career. I never threw no towel in. I says, go in there and take some licks. You know, you want to fight. You know, the referee's there to protect you.
And how would Mum be feeling at this time?
Mum would be crying and covering her face up and putting her head down, and she'll be feeling it. She always feels it. Every time he fights, she always feels that stress or that worry of it happening to him.
So when you're cornering Romain, was it another, like I remember when I used to corner my son, and he was just another fighter. He was just another fighter in the corner. He wasn't told anything different. I wasn't feeling any other way. Exactly the same way.
He's just another fighter. You know, he's got to go out there, do the job. He's trained hard. Go out there, win this fight. You know, we just that.
I think you've got to feel like that and not let the emotion side take over, because when the emotion side takes over, you probably throw the towel in too soon, or you
I've
know.
never thrown a towel in for none of my fights. Never,
Right.
Never ever had to. I've never had one of my fighters get knocked out yet.
Right.
Never ever. So I don't know why.
That is a very good track record.
Yeah, I've never had that. I hope, touch wood, I hope that don't ever happen.
Yeah.
But I've never put a fighter in a fight if he's not prepared. I've done it before and it hurt me.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? And that was on one of the Midland Mayhems, and
Right.
I was fighting against one of the Evans twins.
Right.
I put a guy in, and I thought I had the ability, he trained hard, but he went out there and it was just, the difference was like that.
Right,
You know,
right.
and I said to myself now, I'm never going to put a guy in a fight who I don't think is ready. Because I wouldn't feel, it wouldn't sit with me.
I think the thing is as well, because you're like, a very, very experienced official,
Yeah.
a referee, you kind of see things that maybe other people don't. You know, somebody sitting in the audience watching fight going, God, pull him out, but you can see because you've seen it so many times.
Yeah, that's what it's like. I could see that last punch, I could see that next punch, I could see the body language of the fighter.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm speaking to the fighter, I can see when he's finished, he's deflated, he's give up. Just in his eyes, you can see when he wants me to make that decision to stop the fight.
And that's something that only comes with experience.
It comes
doesn't
with
it?
experience. You've been there time and time again. You know when that guy gets knocked down, the way he gets up, the way he falls, you know if that guy should go another round or not. You never want any fatalities on your shift. And refereeing is so, some people just jump in there without thinking the consequence if you get it wrong. You know, but it's a hard game, man, because you know, you want everybody to go home to their families, all their babies, you don't know, brain damage, you don't know.
You officials are the unsung hero. Let's use that as the stimulus to where refereeing come from. Where did the officiating side of things come from? Because that's not something that everybody does in martial arts.
I was teaching and working, like I said, I've always worked. I've worked now for 37 years. I retired last year, December the 5th, from working in a factory. Okay, so I kind of went more into the martial arts. Back then, I was working and I was teaching, and it felt like my teaching becomes a job.
Right, okay.
Because I don't know if I was tired or, it just become a job. I was looking at my time, gotta be training, gotta go to work, gotta train.
Yeah.
So I didn't have nothing. I needed something, and I couldn't fight, which was one thing. So the only place I could go is in the middle of a fight.
Right.
In the middle of the ring and get a buzz. of being in the middle of two guys who's trying to knock each other out, competing to the maximum, and feeling the energy, and even the energy from the crowd, it kind of lifted me, you know. So I was with ISKA, Paul Hennessy, and I said to Paul one day, Paul, I'm getting bored as a teacher, you know, I want something else. He says, why don't you go to officiating? I went, okay then, yeah, why not? He says, alright then, we've got a show, blah, 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 come down. And then John will show you how it goes, John Blacklegs, that was, I said, okay then, alright then. So I went to the Lighthouse at the Chub in Wolverhampton, and I went there, put a white shirt on, the dick bow on, and I went there thinking I'm going to be sitting down watching, and then John, no, get in the ring. Okay.
Just straight off the bat?
Just straight off the bat. Well, I was watching first, just watched him a little bit first, and then he put me in a ring. But I was always reffing in the club. I was always reffing my students. We always used to have these little club things, and I was always doing it anyway. You know, so I seemed to take to it like a fish to water. Yeah. You know, and then a couple of times John will have a good go at me, you know, for certain things I'd done, because I didn't know. I was
learning on the job, aren't you?
Yeah, and then like I stopped with John and Paul for a while, and then I met Mick Fowles. He come to one of the shows.
Who was he with at the time?
Mick was with ISKA as well.
Right, okay.
So all of them was together. But like, he was doing a show in Bedford for a guy called Nigel Thomas, and he says, come down and watch. Come down and watch. So I went down and was watching and looked and see what he was doing, and then he kind of took me on my wing then. He was like another mentor. John was a mentor, Mick was a mentor. But when I was with Mick, he taught me about K1, Thai boxing, Oriental, full contact, leg kick. I'd done the whole thing, you know. We was doing like 40 shows a year, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We was all over the country doing it, you know, and I was doing it constantly. I'd done that for a couple of years, but then, like on a Sunday, coming back 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got up at 6 o'clock to go to work, and then after work I was teaching.
Did it feel like a chore though, or were you enjoying it?
I was enjoying it, but then I was getting tired. I was getting tired, working, teaching, refereeing, family. It was 4 balls I was juggling. I was just greedy for it, because that's how I am. I have to keep busy. Everybody knows me. I'm busy all the time. I thrive on being busy. But sometimes your body just needs to just calm down. So something had to go. So my reffing, I told Mick, I can't. I'm gonna have to take a rest from this reffing and that. You know, and just concentrate on my clubs.
Did you realise at the time with your refereeing how good you were at it? Because this is the thing, like there's coaches and there's good coaches, there's fighters and there's good fighters, there's referees and there's good referees. Like we, as a club, we will go to a show and we will look at the man in the middle and it's like, oh gosh. And then other times you go to a show and you look at the man in the middle and you go, we're all right today. You know, this guy knows what he's doing in there.
I mean, as a referee, I used to go and he used to announce my name and people used to clap. And I thought, I'm the ref. Clap fighters, like, you know, they're the ones that are putting their life on the line. I'm just in there, the shadows, just protecting the fighters and moving around and letting them express your pain to watch them, not me. But you know, people clap and people come out. You're brilliant. How did you do that? You've done so many fights, and like sometimes 22 fights or whatever. I just love being in there, just doing it with my exercise, like, you know, just dodging punches and a bit of footwork in there. No,
you're in there to fight yourself.
I'm getting involved in it, and I loved it because I couldn't fight, so that's my buzz to get in the middle of a good fight.
But do you think like the passion? You've got to be passionate about anything you do. But especially the 2 things for me as a referee, and I'm not a referee, so this is like an outside observation. The first thing is you got to be passionate about it. You got to love what you do. And the second thing is you don't make it about you. You make it about the fighters. From time when you're trying to get the spotlight, it spoils the enjoyment for the crowd, and also it spoils the experience for the fighters as well.
It's about the fighters. I know some referees will stop and talk and cuss the fighters, but they're under pressure already, so why am I adding more pressure to them? You know, I want them to feel comfortable in the ring, and I'm just in there to instill the rules, to make sure they abide by the rules, and I'll tick them off. And I get angry with them sometimes. I've even slapped fighters, well, I probably shouldn't have, but they're pissing me off. Like, they're not listening to me. Do you get what I mean? So I've been rough in there with them, and they've listened to me, and they've come back and they've respected it. And some of the corners as well, like, you know, sometimes.
I don't know of anybody. I mean, I'm heavily involved in the martial arts. I don't know of anybody that doesn't respect you as a referee?
I respect that, and I feel honoured about that. But I just do it because I love doing it. It's like, it's not even about what people think of me or whatever, you know. I just love doing it. You know, it's like a passion of mine, just being out there, feeling that energy, getting that buzz. I go home, and it's like the kung fu films, like the snake and the snake and the eagle shadow.
Yeah.
You know, like when the master's watching a snake and the eagle fight.
Yeah.
I'm in there, I'm watching these fighters, I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm learning what works and what don't work. So I'll take you back to my club then.
Wow.
Do you get what I mean?
Always learning. Every day's a school day.
Every day's a school day. I'm watching champions fight, and I'm watching the way they move, and I'm watching the way they're throwing these combinations. I'm watching the way they're countering. I go down and watch the way they're feeding the pads in the changing rooms.
Yeah.
You know, so to me now, it's like an education as well. Like, you know, I always learn something.
I'm exactly the same.
You
When
know, so
watching other coaches and watching them ply their trade, and it's like, the second you think that you know it all,
you don't. Yeah, it's like learning for me. So being out there, I'm watching and I'm learning, as well as like looking after the fighters and keeping them safe, like, you know. So it's.
So what's your favourite discipline to referee? What would you say that your favourite?
MMA is good.
Okay.
Because you don't have to get too much involved.
Complex, very complex.
It's complex. But like when they're on the ground, I don't have to separate them. When they're holding each other, I don't have to separate them. The only thing is stop the fight when somebody's in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and just know how or what happened why it stopped, and you know. So I find that nice. Thai boxing, you have to get more involved with the grappling, especially when they're not working. Just separate them, make sure they're not holding the ropes and that.
Mm-hmm.
K1's quite nice because they don't do much grappling, but then you get a lot of beginners who go in who don't know how to fight.
Yeah.
You know, and you probably get somebody who's from a Thai boxing background doing K1 because his opponent pulled out, and you got to get more involved and try and teach them as they're fighting. You know, but the fights I like, or the shows I like, when they're throwing this in and that in, I'm getting a bit of everything.
Yeah.
So I'll probably get a K1 fight, I'll get a Thai boxing fight, I'll get an MMA fight, I'll get a full contact fight.
Mm-hmm.
I love that thing where
so there's a good mix on the show.
A good mix of fights, yeah.
Do you ever get, you don't have to mention no names, do you ever get a club that they come and you think, oh gosh, here we go?
Yeah.
Here's trouble.
There's some real disrespectful clubs out there. Just the other day, one of my good friends got attacked in the ring. He was refereeing, and some person decided to throw punches after the ref because he weren't happy with the decision.
Wow.
But I've had things with him in the past as well where I just thought, you know what, mate, I used to look up to you, but if you're going to do that to the referee and the officials, they're just doing a job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If they didn't have officials and referees and things like that, there wouldn't be no shows.
I've read something Carl Sams put up the other day. He put up a post and he said, you know, one of the things that he hears on like when he's about, is in a novice fight, oh, the referees were paid off or the judges were paid off, and it's like, I don't know who's paying them, and I don't know who would go out of their way, but it just doesn't happen, does it?
It's not down to the... Sometimes a referee might get it wrong.
Yeah.
He might count somebody where he doesn't need counting, he probably slipped or something like that, or he didn't stop the fight.
But that happens in every contact sport. It happens in boxing weekly, the officials get the decisions wrong and calls wrong.
With me now, I'm lucky, I feel lucky to have people to mentor me as a referee, to tell me where I'm going wrong, because there's some refs out there that hasn't got no mentor. They keep making the same mistakes over and over again with nobody telling them, look, you're making a mistake there, you need to... Do you get what I mean? I've got John Blackledge, I've got Mick Files on the end of the phone. If I do something and I'm not happy about it, you know, did I do that right or what? I'll ring them and I'll say, look, blah, 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 blah. I haven't had to do it lately because I feel a bit more comfortable doing it.
Are you self-critical, you know, like if a fight goes up and you remember the fight and think, oh, did I get that right or did I get that right? That you'd watch it back and be critical, self-critical and... Yeah,
sometimes that can happen. Do you get what I mean? I was in a show the other day and it was the first round, a guy took a head kick and I saw him going and I stopped, sent the fight to the neutral corner, give him an A-standing count, and he's asking me, what are you doing that for?
Yeah.
So, mate, he was nearly gone.
Yeah.
And he's looking at his gun saying, what's all this? But then he took a knee in the head.
Right.
Because he kept putting his head down, I kept warning him, don't put your head down there, and I stopped it, and he said, what are you doing that for? Mate, his head must have been numb as anything, but then I had to watch the replay to make sure that count I gave him, I wanted to watch his body language.
Do you know what's funny is like you get people complaining about referees' decisions or referees' performances or judges' performances. They're watching it live.
Yeah.
They haven't got no action replays. They haven't got no different camera angles. They've got to make a judgment call there and then, you know. And I think you've got to like give them credit that they're doing their best job. They're not going out of their way to make a call wrong, you know.
I mean, if I'm in a position where I'm not sure about something, I just revert back to my judges, because I've got 6 eyes sitting out the outside of the ring watching the fight.
Yeah.
But it does me when I don't know the judges and I go to them and I say, did you see that? No. Did you see that? No. Did you see? Oh, you're not watching the fight? You're not watching the fight?
Yeah.
Getting paid to watch the fight, you didn't see nothing. I saw it, but I weren't quite sure what it was because of the angle of the person. Was it a knee in the body or was it knee to the groin? Because he's complaining it was a knee to the groin, where I'm not quite sure, but you do find yourself in that position and you have to make a decision what to do.
That's why it's important sometimes to work with a good team and have qualified officials at ringside.
Definitely, yeah.
So you've been in the man in the middle on some great nights for some great fights. Are there any fights that stick out in your mind over the years?
Gosh, that's a hard one, you know, because there's been loads. I can't think of one, any particular, but the fights I do like are the ones where it's a 50-50 fight, 2 fighters clashing, can't knock each other out, and the crowd's just electrifying, and you feel the vibrations of the whole place. That's what excites me. I'll go back to the rip corner every round and I'm smiling, and I can't wait for the next one. You know, it could be anybody in there, and that's what I kind of zone in on, the energy of the fight, you know, and I just get a buzz off it, you know. Maybe the greatest fight is going to be the next one. It could be. Good things to come. You know, there's some great little fighters, like, you know, like I like Blaine Wilson, and there's that Conor George, you know. There's like Shaquille, like, you know, Cass is one, and one person I miss is Carl Johnson. I used to love like great watching him fight, you know, because, you know, there's some fighters out there that, you know, I like watching, and I've seen them grow from young going up to men. You know, and it's nice to say that I've actually repped them for a few times, like, you know, and seen their progression, like, you know, so it is nice, you know, seeing the kids grow into men. And fight in full contact, like, you know. So.
And these are the superstars of the future, aren't they?
They're our future. You know, the kids are our future, because how long does a fighter last for, really? How many years can he go on for? But the young ones can replenish it. Just keep the thing going, like, you know.
So looking back on a long career, a long career.
Yeah, long career.
What would you say was your highest highs and your lowest lows?
Ooh. My highest highs, seeing my son become a world champion and seeing him achieve one of his life dreams, you know, and being part of that, you know, that was a high. And then seeing some of the kids I've been working with turn their lives around and become somebody that's making now an impact in the world, a positive impact where there was really negative. And it feels like they was calling me like a father figure. You know, I don't mind that title, because we all need somebody to tell you what to do. So some of the kids come to me because they want me to tell them what to do, because they've got nobody else to tell them what to do. So, and when I see them achieve great things, that's like you said, it's like planting a seed and watching it germinate into something. That is like another one of my buzzes, like, you know. And the lowest one was getting injured early in my career. Do you get what I mean? And it's damn pandemic as well. They're my low points, like where I can't teach and I can't achieve the things I wish I could have achieved, you know. But, you know, it's what it is sometimes.
But maybe if you didn't get injured, we'd be, you know, robbed of a great referee, you know.
And a good instructor, maybe.
Everything happens for a reason.
So yeah, I believe in that as well. I think things happen for a reason. I had my time and had a good time doing it, and I thought I could probably, if I would have had the right people guiding me, then I could have probably went to great things, maybe, you know. But it's like just having the right people behind you who can map out a paved way for you to greatness, you know. But I try to be that now. I try to be the instructor I wish I could have had when I was younger.
That's a great way of looking at it. A great way of looking at it.
And I always tell my students, try to be the student you wish you could have.
Yeah.
Try to be the student you wish you could have, because if you was an instructor, what students would you like? So you try to be that, because I didn't have many people. Well, I had good instructors around me, but I was here, there and everywhere. I just didn't feel comfortable.
You didn't have like one home.
No, I didn't.
So outside of martial arts, not that it sounds like you have much time outside of martial arts, what do you like doing with your time? How do you fill your time?
I take my dog for a walk in the outbacks, fresh air, sometimes watch the sun come up, and my grandchildren, I've got 5 grandchildren now, so I spend more time trying to do my little rounds with the grandchildren and that. They come training anyway, but sometimes just take them to feed the ducks and just simple things, I'm retired now, so I've got more time where I can chill and relax and spend time with the missus, because we like going here, there and everywhere, as well. So outside, I try to keep everybody happy.
Enjoying the fruits of your labour?
Yeah, try and keep everybody happy outside,
Any regrets?
Any regrets?
I mean, there's certain things that are outside of your control, like your injury, but any regrets that you...
Probably wasting time with people that don't deserve my time. It's like sometimes you want to go so far with somebody and then it feels like I'm on a runway just about to take off, and then we crash land and I can't find my motivation again to take off. So wasting time with people that...
Is that fighters, students?
Fighters, students, coaches, people.
Do you feel like you're more selective with your time as you get older?
No, I am as I get older, because I don't know how much time I've got left. And then sometimes when I spend time on something, I'm never going to get that time back.
Yeah.
So I choose where to spend my time and what to do with my time. So many hours in a day. And a lot of people younger than me, just the other day, have passed. 35, 32, and I'm happy to be 58. So I just take one day as it comes, try and enjoy something in a day, which I love teaching, so that's my passion,
Time's very valuable, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think we should waste it on doing negative things with negative people, And that's what I try to do, try and keep around positive people, because they lift me up and keep me high, and I can follow them. I'm looking for great leaders to follow. More than bad leaders. What am I going to follow a bad leader for?
I think it's having the maturity and the wisdom to spot the bad leaders.
Yes, that as well.
Which a lot of people struggle, don't they?
They struggle, but it's down to experience and not being a fool. A fool will make a mistake and make the same mistake again, but you got to see through that, us now we probably see some things and
Been there, done
it, got the t-shirt, I know it's not right,
So plans for the future, Garth, both inside and outside of martial arts?
Well, enjoying, trying to live as long as I can, try and keep myself as healthy as I can.
You changed your diet, didn't you?
Yeah, I haven't ate meat for like how many years now? 5 years now. I've been like vegetarian, stroke vegan. Try and keep off dairy products. Try and keep off I do have little bits and pieces, but the meat I've just cut off and I just feel good with it. So I just try and eat like a cow and a horse.
This is why you look and move like a 30-year-old.
I wish. But yeah, I think what fuel you put in your body will take its toll eventually. Try not to drink too much, forget about smoking, because you need your lungs. Your lungs ain't metal. So, just keep healthy as long as you can, and then hopefully you'll live a strong life. You ain't going to be coming down with no ailments and get disabled and things like that. And
inside of martial arts, just keep on keeping on?
Inside of martial arts, maybe one day I'd like to have a gym again.
Right.
I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but I like a home, a legacy to leave for my son. Something like that maybe, because I'm happy where I am at the minute because things are good.
It's just a terrible climate.
It's just a bad climate at the minute to do anything,
You never know what's round the corner. Don't know what's happening next week, let alone next year.
We don't know, but something like that would be nice for me. So just keeping healthy outside and just living life, being happy. Try and keep positive all the time, because even negative things, you can learn things.
There's a lesson in everything, isn't
there? There's a lesson in everything, because I believe out of the most negative things, something positive can grow, like flowers grow in horse manure.
Yeah.
Beautiful ones.
That's a Bruce Lee quote if I've ever heard one.
But out of the worst things, something, and just be positive about that. No matter how you're feeling, there's always someone worse. And things, it can't rain forever. The sun's got to shine soon. So I never give up hope. And I believe God's testing me. He's putting these challenges in front of me, because He wants to test me out. He's going to make sure I don't give up though. No matter what happens, giving up, you'll never achieve anything if you give up.
I think that's one thing that you can install into each and every student in your care.
That's what I try and tell them. I say, listen, once you start something, just carry on and see it through. If you can't do it, just be honest and say, look, I can't do it, but don't waste time. Don't waste people's time. And try and tell the kids, look, I'm an instructor. Why are you making me not like you? Because you're not listening. I want to help you, but you think I'm going to help you if I don't like you? And when you go to school as well, you make sure that teacher likes you. Take an apple for the teacher. I don't care if people call you teacher's pet. Give them a sweet or something like that.
Get on
say
side.
Thank you. Because, at the end of the day, when you knock on somebody's door and they start shutting curtains on you, I don't want to see you.
So you hear that, everyone that's watching this, every time you go to a show and Garth's in the centre, bring him an apple.
Or a sweet.
Your fighter will be okay. So listen, Garth, is there one bit of advice you could give a young martial artist coming through now? There's a multitude of advice that you could give them, but just one seed of wisdom.
I've said it already. Be the student you wish you could have. Be the student you wish you could have. If you was an instructor, what kind of student would you like? Try and be that student. Would you want a bad one? Would you want one that don't listen? You want a disrespectful one? Be the student you wish you could have. And I'm trying to be the instructor I wish I could have.
That's a brilliant philosophy. Brilliant.
So that's me personally.
So Garth, it's been amazing. Just wrapping things up, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank to? Because this is your forum to,
I'd like to thank you
back.
first, Neil. Thank you for doing this. I've actually spoke about myself on a nice platform, and you do a great thing, and you're doing a great thing for everybody.
Do you know what it is, Garth? It's the unsung heroes. And I know there's lots of things I found out about you today, but I knew a lot about you. I've known you for 35 years. Since the very first class that I walked onto, you were one of the top students at the back of the gym, the first Kung Fu class I ever went to. But there's a lot of people out there that just know Garth Porter, the referee, and it's no guys, he's so much more than that. You know what I mean? So much more than that. An amazing martial artist, an amazing philosopher. It's one of my the biggest things that attracts me to you is your philosophy. I can sit down and talk to you, and the things you'll say, it's I'm having that, I'm using that, I'm bringing that back to my head. So it's to get your story out there to everybody is really important. Really important. So really it's been my pleasure.
I really do. I'd like to thank all my instructors, from Les Mayo to Coral, Micah, Alfie Lewis, the promoters that I've worked with, Carl Denny, Dave Phillips, who else? Lee Whittington, who else is there? Sonny Hira,
Gavin Burrows,
Cal Wood. Because they've given me a platform for me to go out there and enjoy and express myself as a referee, and my fighters, to give them opportunities, to fight for some great things, so I really want to thank them as well. I'd like to thank Andrew Hennessy as well, as a promoter with the Midland Mayans, and yourself, giving my son them opportunities to fight for English, British, European and world title, because it's great, because I feel proud and he feels proud, my wife, because without her behind me, she's good, man, she's strong, man, because martial arts has been my wife as well,
of course.
She's been fighting against it for a long time, but thank you for being there behind me, and my daughter, my son, Becky, Rebecca Edwards, they've always been there for me, they've never left me, they've always watched my back, Claire Matthews as well. she's been a great ambassador because her kids trained me from young. And it's nice to be trusted with people's family, you know, because, you know, it's my family as well. When people drop their kids off to me and leave them, they're my kids, because I have to look after them and make sure they're safe. When they come and pick them up, they take them back again. You know, so, you know, I'm just grateful that they trust me. You know, it's like Sharon, she's one of my long-time students as well. She's doing her own thing as well out there, you know, which, you know, I've started that wheel and it's just gathering moss now. So, you know, I feel happy for her, you know, doing what she's doing, you know. And everybody that I've worked with, you know, everybody that's let me ref on their shows and worked as like judges around the ring, we've had fun, you know, and oh God, that's everybody. I can't think of anybody else. But yeah, I'm just grateful for everybody that stood up and clapped me while I've been in that ring, you know, thinking I was a good referee, you know, I'm trying my best, like.
And long may that continue as well, Garth.
Yeah, oh man, I'm gonna go, like you says, just bury me under a ring somewhere. I'm like with you, man.
Hopefully that's not any.
Oh, no, I know. But
thank you so much for telling your story today, much appreciated, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Us.